And there's your cue.
We are live. Welcome to RAGIN we've got a special guest today, Steve Sims, who's got beast hunting battle badgers. With a name like that, of course we had to have him over here. We have got an intro, and then we're going to drop the card, and we're going to talk to him. We'll be right back after this.
RAGIN.
Asian. Hagen.
Hello, everybody who's tuning in. Make sure that you are hitting the subscribe button wherever it is you're tuning in from. We are simulcasting to Indie Volt, Comics and More New Jersey, Geek Insider, as well as RAGIN ABC. Hit the button. This is episode 30 with Steve Sims, and he is the creator behind Beast Hunting Battle Badgers. Hey, Steve.
Hi, guys. How's it going?
How are you?
Not too bad. I've never been live on anything before, so
Really?
I'm gonna have to behave myself.
No, not at all. That's why we're called RAGIN. Welcome to the show. We will definitely bring up your Kickstarter. I love the name. When Nita and I first saw it, we were like, "Oh yeah, that the art looks fantastic." Definitely want to hear more about the storyline because you launched not too long ago. So even when we saw it, we were like, "What is it about?" Just the art alone, I was like, "I'll just plaster that on my wall." But Steve, introduce yourself really quickly.
Okay. Well, I'm Steve Sims. I'm an artist and illustrator here in the UK. I work on all kinds of kids' products and licensed characters as my main job. But in my own time, I like to do funny comics about beast hunting battle badgers.
So I love to get to the genesis story of our creators who sit in that chair. What was young Steve like, and when did he get to a point where he said, "This is what I want to do. I want to do comic books, and I want to do because I see characters behind you."
Yeah, I pretty much I've always drawn and scribbled and created characters and things from when I was very young at school. Like in every lesson, I was usually scribbling sort of warriors or wizards or Ninja Turtles or things like that in my books when I should have been doing maths or history. And at one point, a teacher said to me, that's pretty good. Maybe you should be actually doing your lessons. But if you do want to keep doing that, there is a possible avenue you could put your skills into. And he started to show me like illustration and different careers you could do through art. So that sort of, as soon as he did that, there was no turning back, really. It was like, okay, I can turn what I thought was just me being a bit thick and only able to draw into actually a career path. So
kudos to the teacher for doing that.
Yeah, you never forget those awesome teachers. Miss Perryman, she was called, one of my favorites.
Yeah. I mean, because a lot of times, adults especially, they think they default to sports, right? Or other academics. They don't really think about art. So how about your parents? Did they were like, "Well, that's nice, Steve. You've been scribbling all your life, but how are you going to pay the bills?"
Oh, it's almost like you were there. Yeah, my dad.
I was there. That's why.
My dad's really good at drawing. He used to draw us birthday cards. He's very talented, and I think he's quite a realist. So he always said, "Okay, you like drawing, but there aren't that many jobs in it. So prepare yourself for disappointment." But I was just stubborn. I was like, I don't care. I'm just going to draw anyway. Even if I don't make much money, I'll just eat bread and butter, and as long as I can draw stuff. So I just sort of carried on with that as a path, really. And when there were courses already set up, like I did an A level in art and an advanced GMVQ in art, and my teacher said, okay, as that's coming to an end, what next? And then she showed me prospectus to do a degree in illustration. And I thought, well, whatever I can do to not get a proper job and just jump to the next thing down this artistic path, I'll go that way.
Mm-hmm. The proper job. A friend of mine just had told me a long time ago, job is Journey of the Broke. And that kind of stuck in my head. So I totally get that. Like I don't want to, if I'm going to work hard, I'd rather work really hard for myself. And so that journey has been, the constant. Now, are you at a point now where you're kind of commission based? You're kind of making your own way, or do you work with studios?
I work with a studio. There's a studio in Exeter. We're called Dynamo, and that's my main full-time job. And we get all sorts of clients from all over the world, like Cartoon Network, or certain publishers might have a new book that they want done, so they come to us and we can solve all the creative problem in one. We've got writers and designers and
nice
and illustrators like me as an in-house resource. So the day job is kind of adapting my skills to whatever the client wants and the style the client wants, which is really good fun and great practice for doing different styles. But it does leave you thinking at the end of the day, I want to actually do something that just comes out naturally in my own style, which is why I thought, right, I need to carve a little bit of time every week to work on my own thing. And that's when I started to do self-publishing about 14 years ago, I think it was, I started doing it.
What would you say is the biggest challenge to self-publishing for you?
I think the biggest challenge is keeping the momentum on it, the energy, because obviously to do a book, whether it's say a 21 to 24 page comic book or a whole graphic novel, you don't just sit down and do it in a week. You have to squeeze it in the gaps. You have to do it in and around everything else. So it's doing it at the end of a long day, or if you do manage to get yourself a day off, getting up at the same time as you would to start work, but working on that instead, and working through late into the evening, staying committed to that project and thinking, okay, in 8 months to a year, it'll be complete, and then I'll have a thing to show people, and not getting distracted along the way, which can be quite hard. Especially if you then produce that comic and you only sell a small amount, then think, okay, well, fair enough, but the next one will sell more. Keeping that momentum and that positivity into the next one and building it up slowly. It's not, it's not impossible, but that's just the hard side of it in a way, is keeping that fire burning. But that's a really good thing about Comic-Cons, is you take your stuff along, even if you've only just started and you've got a tiny little sort of scrappy self-made book. Some people will appreciate it, and they'll give you positive feedback, and they'll say, I love your crazy ideas. And that means you come away from it thinking, well, that's my audience. It's only those 4 guys. But then next time you go, it's, those 4 guys.
Maybe they'll bring a friend.
Exactly. That's build it and they will come sort of mentality. So as long as you can keep that.
But you mentioned Comic-Cons, and this past year, the world's been shut down. How have you pivoted from that?
Yeah, it has been a bit of a shitter, really, to be honest, because I do always look forward to the Comic-Cons I do. I mean, I don't do loads. I do maybe 5 or 6 a year, but you would work towards that next one, and you'd meet your local little creators, and you'd see familiar faces. And they say, I'll catch you at the next one, and they want to see what you've produced. So when that suddenly goes away, you always feel like you're back to square one of like, well, no one's looking at my product, no one cares. But that's not true at all. The internet's amazing. You can put your stuff up, and you still get that contact. People send you messages, little likes on your work. And when it all opens back up again, if and when, touch wood, you know that those guys will still be there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I really appreciate about this past year was that it opened up a worldwide audience, whereas a convention is very kind of localized unless you're traveling there. And then you don't have to walk away with con crud. I mean, if you do, it's because you're a dirty SOB at home, you know?
Yeah.
But tell us that the journey into getting into a studio. You know, was it a convention kind of experience where you brought in a portfolio and somebody says, yeah, show up at such and such street and let's see what you got?
Well, I didn't start doing sort of comics and conventions and things like that until after I started working in the studio, funnily enough, because
Okay.
my path was more towards illustration, kids' books, and general illustration to be as commercial as possible, because you'll get as much work as possible if you can work in different styles. So when I went to do an illustration degree, they spent a lot of time teaching us about being flexible and open to different briefs, so you can get a lot of work. So I did that degree, came out of university, and like the rest of us on the course, just started to look around for any work possible, which took me a couple of years. And during that time, I was working in warehouses and desk jobs and, you know, just sort of office monkey stuff. Any job I can get where I could secretly sit in the corner and just draw was the sort of thing I would aim for. And I eventually, during one of my lunch breaks when I was working an office job, I went to a local newsagent here and saw that the annuals would come out just before Christmas, and one of them was the Ninja Turtles annual. And I thought, well, that's interesting, because I'm a huge Ninja Turtles fan, and I knew how Mirage Studios worked. And I thought, well, that's a UK published book, and it's got original content inside, so they must be commissioning somebody to do that. And I looked up the studio that was doing it, and it was sort of 30 minutes down the road on the train. So I instantly, you know, phoned the place and sent emails basically begging, saying, please, you know, let me do something for you. Yeah, I'll do it for free, kind of thing. And so so I got a phone call while I was at my desk. The boss of the place basically said, well, what are you doing now and what are your qualifications? And I said, well, I got a degree in illustration, and I'm currently hiding in the corner drawing on my office job. And he said, okay, come in and we'll have a look at your portfolio. And I showed him what I do, and he took me on for a 6 months trial contract. And during that time, I just did everything I could. I worked on Barney annuals, Noddy annual, whatever they threw at me, and just showed how versatile I could be. And at the end of the 6 months, he said, okay, kid, you know, you can stay.
That is a leap of faith, Steve. You know, to have from like a I guess a secure job to saying, hey, yeah, we'll give you a 6-month trial.
Yeah, the thing is, like, those jobs where your heart's not in it, they never really feel like secure jobs to me, because yeah, you're secure at your desk, but you're slowly going crazy in your head.
Right? It's killing my soul.
Exactly. Yeah. So the idea of leaving all that behind and going working crazy hours for not a lot of pay just to prove myself, it was like, okay, this seems much more sane than just sitting at a desk for 8 hours and feeling myself slowly morphing into the desk itself, never to be seen again. So.
Yeah, we know that feeling. So when it comes time to going to conventions and things, do you always bring a portfolio with you as well, kind of opening up new avenues and connections and things? Or?
Well, I think because a lot of my time is taken up with my day job. We've got loads of work coming in through the studio, and a lot of it does come through my desk. So there's always stuff for me to be doing. So I don't necessarily go out with a portfolio to try and get other work. The cons for me are more me like taking the stuff that I've done for myself, really. You know, like this is what comes out naturally when I draw what I want to draw, and just laying it all out on the table, see if anyone's interested. And then running around like a mad thing when I get 10 minutes and buying what everyone else is doing, because That's my favorite thing about a con, is just to see what everyone else has come up with and meeting new ideas. And you find a back issue bin of loads of old 10p Conans or something, and you come away with a carrier bag full of more stuff to fill your house with or your flat.
Do you okay, so the thing I wanted to ask with your work and everything, it's been, you said about 14 hours. I mean 14 years
Yeah,
that you've been
14
kind of
years.
working
Yeah.
on this. When did beast hunting battle badgers come into your head? Because that to me looks so original and so new and
it's
very
so cool. As soon as
exciting.
we read the name, it's like, oh, we're sold.
And we're like, oh yeah, yeah. and I immediately kind of thought of like the Ninja Turtles, but I was also thinking of Thundercats for some reason.
Right.
I don't know why Thundercats came into my head, but and I'm like, yes, that looks so exciting. I mean, you said that you were inspired and that you love the Ninja Turtles. Where did the inspiration for Battle Badgers come from?
Well, the first thing I did when I started to do my own self-published books ages ago, the first thing I did was I got over here a book called
Ooh, let's get you up on Solo.
Fire and Grimstone Kaiju. Now, this was basically my love of giant monster movies and old black and white horror movies and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And also the cartoon Samurai Jack. So
I love it.
Love Samurai Jack.
This is just a like a storyboard, basically. So silent movie, just panels telling a story. Because I wasn't really that strong on writing. Didn't have enough confidence to write anything yet, and I wanted to produce something like that was mainly just telling a story of the pictures. And that one was, people liked that. They gave me a thumbs up, so that gave me the confidence to do another one called The Worm and the Well. But this time it was based on a old, I think it's a Scottish folk tale, The Lambton Worm, where a young boy goes fishing and he catches a worm rather than the fish. He thinks, oh, that's gross, and he throws it down the well and walks away. He gets sent off to war, and while he's at war, the worm grows in the well, comes out and attacks the village. And so I was able to take the folktale itself and just sort of retell it in my own words. So the structure was already there. So that was me sort of leaning on the words that were
and
already
that's what
there.
you get for throwing me away, right?
Exactly. So that again is in black and white, but it has text to it, and it's very much. I was in my sort of Mike Mignola period then. I loved the more moody, dark, gothic stuff.
Yes.
And from there, I thought, okay, I can tell a story. I can structure a story now. And I really wanted to move towards more cartoony work, because I was finding my work was getting very rigid, and I wanted to move towards the flexibility and the sort of squash and stretch of a character like Asterix that I've always loved. And I thought I also wanted to come up with my own characters. And being a huge fan of things like Dungeons and Dragons, Asterix, and Ninja Turtles, I thought I need to squeeze all those inspirations and all that love into something. And one night I looked out my window. There was some clanging, and the ladder that's attached to the wall out in the garden was clanging. I thought, what on earth's that? You know, something out there is making a hell of a noise. And we looked out the window, and it was a badger, and he was trying to climb up onto the ladder to get some food from the bird feeder. And I just saw the shape of his body, and I thought, that looks cool and stocky, a bit like sort of Obelix in his weight and his movement. And then, of course, as he sort of snuffled and looked around, he had the markings on the eyes. I was like, that's cool as well. That's like a Ninja Turtles headband, but already there. And so I just started to sketch badgers, and it's like, okay, this is it. This is what I wanted. And it just grew from there in my sketchbook, really.
I love that inspiration. Everybody has a different story, like what pops into your head, whether it's a dream or a nightmare or observing something. So that's really cool. Just in the middle of the night, you had a night visitor.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he wasn't carrying a weapon, or
Uh-huh.
Didn't do any big flying kicks like the battle badgers would, but it was enough for me to go, okay, that is a cool character, cool creature. That's what I'm looking for. And it just grew from there.
Steve, you said that you've been through the process of going to school for illustration and things like that. Did it ever occur to you, it's like, yeah, I'm going to be a writer too. I'm going to write my own stuff. Was that scary for you?
Yeah. I never thought I would write my own comics. I just didn't think I had words in me that would necessarily come out and make sense. One of the things.
What's the process for you? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, one of the things that kind of inspired me is while drawing, I would listen to various podcasts, and one of the podcasts I would listen to is Smodcast with Kevin Smith, and he would always just harp on about how him writing Clerks was just him listening to the dialogue between him and his mates, and just basically, telling a story that involved him and his chums. So for me, the Battle Badgers is pretty much me and a good mate of mine that I work with, our back and forth and how we would interact and how we would react to stuff, like if we were out on an adventure. And it just came so naturally. As soon as you've got your characters, you know what they would say and how they would react. Writing it, suddenly you realize, oh, this isn't actually that bad. I can do this because I know what they would say.
Well, we have a lot of people who are just starting out in the comic book industry. They're paying attention to different shows. They are going into different groups and trying to learn the process. So I myself had started just a little over a year ago, all right, going into comic books for the very first time. And I asked, what does a comic book script look like? Because I've seen movie scripts, I've seen plays, I've seen other types of scripts, and nobody had the same answer.
Right.
It was very frustrating. So what is your process when it comes to a script, or do you kind of have it? Do you have the artist's brain and you're just laying it out and you fill in the blanks afterwards?
I've got some my folders here which might have my scripts in them. What I tend to do is I've got a rough synopsis in my head of what I want to happen, and I will write it down. I got one here. I write it down like this on a sheet of A4. I type it out, and I don't know if you can see, but I then break down the little sections of dialogue. So that's pages 1, 2, and 3. That's 4 and 5. That's 6 and 7. So that's roughly what they would say and what's happening. And it usually fits on about three sheets like that. And then that gets folded in half and it gets put into my travel sketchbook, which is this one. So that when I'm commuting down to the studio, I can just take that out, and with each page then becomes a little thumbnail.
Wow.
So I can have to work with the camera. So this whole book is the thumbnails for all 6 of the issues. And at certain times I'll write in little bits of dialogue there if I think actually this would work better. So from there,
look at you doing all layout and everything.
I know, right?
So there once so that's all, they're all in there. Sort of.
Wow.
And so once
Very
that's
cool.
all sorted for the whole issue, I'll then get out the proper paper and start penciling out the pages themselves. But they've been inked on now, but the pages are,
That's beautiful.
Gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous.
So, and leaving room for the speech bubbles. I know roughly what they're going to be saying. Then once that's all inked, it's scanned in, and then I put in the speech bubbles, and I do tweak the text at that point, because there'll be sometimes when the expression on the character, because I think they would be saying one thing, is that actually the way they're moving and the way they've interacted, I think it'd be cooler if they say this. So allow myself space for little tweaks, as long as it's roughly what they should be saying in the story, based on my structure that I've got in here. I can tweak things a little bit at that stage.
So you're basically the triple threat of comic books. You do the art, you do the writing, and you do the lettering.
Yeah, the lettering I kind of cheat on. I do it all by, computer. Thank God for computers and Photoshop allowing me to correct mistakes and quickly I say quickly, but, do lettering that isn't incredibly hard,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, we are going to take a little bit of a break, and we're going to come back. We're going to talk about Beast Hunting Battle Badgers because you've got 1 through 6, which implies that you've been doing this for a while, but this is a hardback copy.
Yeah.
And it's gorgeous. We are going to take a little bit of a break. You guys stay tuned. We are talking to Steve Sims. This is episode 30 of RAGIN. Hold on one second here. Hey there, this is Meredith Loughran with RAGIN, and I wanted to let you know that we encourage and promote independent creators and their projects through organic interaction, consultations, and more. Visit Nita and me at RAGINAVC.com for details and contact information. Hit the button. Hey, you know where else you can hit the button? You can go to Gemini Comic Supply and get a 10% discount on your Gemini mailers by using coupon code VOLT10. That's right. A 10% discount on your Gemini mailers. Use coupon code VOLT10. We are here with Steve Sims. He is the creator behind Beast Hunting Battle Badgers.
And the crowd goes wild.
And they go wild. We love it. We love it. I am definitely going to pull up your campaign here. But 1 through 6, did you release them as floppies?
Yeah,
before
they
you put
are
them together? Nice.
Oh, yeah. Actually, that's book 2 there. So, 1, book 2. Try and do all this in reverse.
Mm-hmm.
Book 3. That's book 5 there. So book 4 and book 5, and then finally book 6, which is a bigger, chunky one than the other ones.
Wow. What was the decision to go with that instead of maybe going to 7?
I said to everybody it's going to be 6 books. So for the, because I would bring out one. Yeah, I'd bring out a book every sort of 9 or 10 months. So when we get round to the winter Comic-Cons again, I would have the next book out each time. And I'd said to people, it's going to be 6 books, don't worry. And so when I got to book 6 and I realized that I wanted a little bit more space, just for certain bits not to be rushed, for certain scenes to have a nice bit of slower pacing and room to breathe. I just thought I'll just make it a double issue.
I appreciate that because I have seen and read stories where they basically went, they killed the story. They made it so abrupt that it almost smacked you in the face. So taking your storyline, I appreciate that you did that.
I definitely didn't want to have to cram in stuff at the end because I wanted to. There's certain things that happen, certain interactions between the characters that I've built up to for a while, and I wanted them to just be able to breathe. I'm a huge fan of Stan Sakai's work, Usagi Yojimbo, and his pacing and the way that he tells a story. So much of it, the quality of it, is in those quiet moments, as well as the quick flash of a blade and a sudden battle. But it's in those nice little detailed interactions. And those are the bits that I tend to remember and stick with me from reading his work. So I thought, okay, that's what I want.
And here we are with, if you guys are tuning in, we are taking a look at the Kickstarter right now, Beast Hunting Battle Badgers, the collected volume 1 through 6, a 240-page graphic novel collecting the 6 issues of the self-published comic, Beast Hunting Battle Badgers. Now, Steve, are issues 1 through 6 available anywhere for people who are like, oh, I don't know if I want the entire book? Of course, they want the entire book, but I'm just asking the question.
The floppy issues were available on my Etsy page, and they've sold out now. I have a few of book 3 and some of book 6, and I just got to that point where it's like I could either do a reorder of all of the 6 books, or just lead up to this collected one and make the collected one better value than buying all the 6 ones separately. So I just thought, okay, I'll put all my efforts into the collected one.
So the coveted project we love.
Yes, you did. Project we love. This is this first created project on Kickstarter, so congratulations. You had the secret sauce.
Oh, thanks very much. Yeah, I've always looked at it from a fire Kickstarter, and people have said, "Oh, you should kickstart this," or you should definitely do something on Kickstarter. But going back to that question you said about the hardest thing with your own project or self-publishing, it's staying on track to actually get it finished, and not letting too many other things come in and overcomplicate or overstack yourself with other bits. Just if you can get that book actually done and finished, and then look at other avenues to get it to people. So for me, getting the 6 issues done and the story told was my main driving force. And then once I'd got it done and I sat back and thought, oh, cool, the whole story's told. Okay, now let's put it into a one-shot format and get it out to as many people as possible in a cool format that is nicely priced.
Right.
Because that's what I look for myself as a comic book fan. Is I always like when the whole story's in one place and it's not going to break the bank to get it. It's like, okay, I'm having that then.
We had talked to Russ Leach on an Indie Vault show a while ago, and he said the thing about getting a project done, he's like, you need to set a deadline or you run out of money. Those are the 2 motivating factors. Right. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, you do have to be very disciplined. You do have to think, okay, I've got this much time or this day set aside, or these couple of hours every week set aside. And when you get there, you have to approach it with, all the energy you can and think, okay, let's get this done. Which when you're working on something that you really got drive and you love, like me with the Battle Badgers, my own characters, even after a pretty full-on work hitting deadlines during the rest of the week, you get up on the Friday and you think, okay, well, this is different. This is my energy, my time, and my product. So let's go.
What else? Because you have a lot of things going on, right? I mean, you have real life stuff, you have the job, and then trying to get pages done for your own projects. What are some of the tools, and how do you kind of manage your day?
I get up at 7 and shower, bit of cereal, straight to the drawing board, and then straight through till about 5 or 6 when my partner Cass gets back from work. And during that time, I will hopefully have got about 2 or 3 pages penciled, or if I'm inking, a couple of pages inked. Or if I'm at the toning stage, I'd like to get about, say, 3 or 4, maybe 5 pages toned, and I try and keep to that routine, because then I can schedule when the book will be done. I think, okay, on that time scale, 22 pages will be done in this much time, pencils, and then I'm on the inking stage, and then I'm into the toning, and I know that it'll be ready for this convention, usually around October. And you just get into that rhythm, and you do it year after year, and then after 5 or 6 years, you've got 5 or 6 books.
Now we're going through the panels and things like that. Obviously, you've got the characters down. You've been working with them, but I'm seeing architecture. I'm seeing landscapes. What is the thing that you most struggle with when it comes to art?
Oh, good question. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I struggle with all of it.
Really?
Yeah. I'm really critical of my own work. There's a lot of things I look at and I think, oh, that's not so good. But then I don't let it or want it to get in the way. I just think, okay, just go for it. Just try it. If it doesn't look that good, then the next one you draw will look better, and the next one after that will look better. You just keep going. I mean, one of my main jobs that I do through the studio is a series called Beast Quest. These sort of fancy books for kids, and they've got sort of spot page illustrations inside. So it's just line art basically. I'm not sure if you can really, if it comes out that well on camera, but I've been doing that for, I think, like almost sort of 12 or 13 years, and I'm on book 140, I think, at the moment. So I look back at books one to 10, and the artwork, it just makes me cringe. But the deadline is set, so you just have to keep producing the next book after the next one. After you've done 30 or 40, you look at them and think, oh well, they're not so bad. And then you get into the 70s, the 80s, you think, actually I'm quite liking some of this. And now I'm in the hundreds. Some of the pictures I think, actually I might even put that on my wall. And so you just know that if you just keep doing it, even the things you feel like you struggle with, you'll get better at it, and you won't cringe so much when you look at it.
We've talked to a lot of artists and even writers who they look back on some of the earlier things, and even C. Michael Lanning will say, everything I do now is my future cringe.
Yeah.
Have you ever been tempted to kind of go back to your earlier works, rework it, whether it's the art or maybe dialogue, and re-release it? Or do you like the idea of progressing, people seeing the progression of you as an artist?
Well, the only thing I did go back and do was when I did book 1 about badgers, it's very much, like you say, inspired by a homage to Ninja Turtles. And the old Mirage Ninja Turtles work that Eastman and Laird did, they used old sort of duotone. It was almost like a paper that you drew on, and you could apply chemicals, and the cross hatching would come up from underneath. You can't get it anymore. You can't get it. So I was just trying to replicate that with the actual artwork and putting this cross hatching in, and it looks okay. It looks that sort of independent 80s style. But then when I got to the second book, I thought, actually, I'm going to just go in and grey tone it, because it helps the ink to pop a lot stronger, and it worked a lot better. It worked better with my ink work. So once I'd finished all the books, and in the collected volume, book 1 is now toned like all the other books, rather than having that slight difference of grayscaling. So it's that's the only thing that I went back and changed. So that's a page from book 2, which has got more just airbrushy grayscaling on it. So I wanted it all to look consistent. So when I on the collected one, I thought, okay, that's the only thing I'll allow myself to go back and tweak.
Well, I didn't get you on the big screen for that. Can you share that page again?
Yeah, we'll do. So I'll show you a comparison of the two. If I can grab that book again. There it is. Okay. So if you see so this is a page from book 1. So there, the toning on that was just almost like cross-hatching line, which looks fine on a big single page like that, but just on some of the smaller pages, just wasn't working as strongly as I wanted.
Doesn't pop like you were saying.
Doesn't pop like I really wanted. So when I got to book 2, I thought, okay, I'm going for the more airbrushy grays, just to work with the blacks better. So when we come to the collected volume, which I can show you the proof of here, big old hardback.
That's gorgeous.
You can see that the artwork is gray. Yes. Gray toned like the rest of the book.
It definitely jumps off the page.
Just pops a little bit more. So it's going. We were speaking before about maps.
Maps.
Sure, have a lovely, big old fancy map in the start there to kind of chronicle their journey. So this is my proof of the book. So we can give it a quick flick through. So it's all the books, and then at the back we have sketchbook section.
Okay, I was going to ask if you had extra pages and things.
Yeah, there's sort of a making of section at the back here. So we have extra bits of art, and then at the very back there's a color section with cover art.
And I'm assuming you do your own color as well.
Yeah, I do. That's another thing that goes into the schedule of producing the comic is obviously you've got the penciling and the ink in the turning of the actual book, but then you've got to produce the front cover. So we'll have front cover like so, painted up, and then we have a back cover piece of art I do as well, just the character saying, hey, check us out on social media and things like that. And then also a kind of intro spread, basically saying previously on Battle Badges, leading into this recent book.
Very cool. So there are some people who, they do such fine line work, and then they send it off to the colorist, and a lot of times lose the detail. What was your decision to kind of keep it grayscale as opposed to color?
It was two main factors. The first one was that I love black and white and grayscale comics, because that's how Ninja Turtles started, and that's what really drew me to them as independent and self-published comic producers, is the really nice grayscaling and toning they had in their artwork. And then when they let other artists come on and play with the characters, when they started to do their Tales of the TMNT and the later issues of the main run, they obviously, Eastman and Laird, were too busy to be drawing it themselves. They had to do all the licensing for the cartoon. So they brought in lots of other artists like Jim Lawson and Ryan Brown and people like that, and Eric Talbot. And you just had all these lovely different versions of how an artist works in grayscale and black and white. And I just studied those for hours. Every new issue you get would be a new artist. Like, how are they going to deal with it? So when I came to producing my own stuff, I wanted to work in grays and black and whites. And also the other main issue, again, is it's that be realistic with your project. If it takes me 8 to 10 months to almost a year to produce a comic book, it would take me 3 or 4 times that sort of time to then have to go in and color every page as well. So get the project done, and then maybe if I've got the energy, go back to the project and do a color version of it if I want to sit down and spend a couple of years going in and coloring all the pages.
Now we have a video here. Is it okay if we play that?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
All right,
Well, you've already seen my silly face, so just see it again.
Let me get that on the big screen, and let's play the video. Here we go.
Hello mateys, my name is Steve Sims, the creator and artist of Beast Hunting Battle Badges. Having recently completed the 6-issue story arc, it's finally time for the Badger Brothers to make their way to Kickstarter for their biggest adventure yet, the Battle Badges Collected Volume. Battle Badges is the tale of Flint and Laird, the last 2 badgers of the Brockwell tribe. Armed with trusty hedgehammer and twin bracken blades, they seek to free the rest of their kin who have been magically imprisoned by a mysterious moon mystic known only as the Shriek. With only their wits and weapons to aid them, they step out into the wilds on a quest to bash some beasties and free the rest of their furry family. Beast Hunting Battle Badges is an all-ages fun fantasy adventure full of monsters, magic and beastly bust-ups. Inspired by classics such as Asterix, Ninja Turtles and Usagi Yojimbo, it's a good old epic anthropomorphic action adventure aimed at anyone who loves a good tale of furry-based fantasy fisticuffs. The collected volume will be a 240-page black and white graphic novel collecting all 6 issues of the Beast Hunting Battle Badges story arc, along with lots of sketches, artwork and other unseen bits that went into the production of the series. There's also a lot of art, goodies and extra gubbins up for grabs. All the artwork and pledge items are already done and produced, so it's just a case of pressing the button. Anyway, enough of them plugs and all that. Come on, Badge, get moshing.
All right, I need that plushie in my life.
He's right here behind me.
Oh my goodness. Where
There
is
he
he?
is.
There he
He's still
is.
moshing.
He's famous.
Yeah, good old Badge.
That campaign is put together really nicely. It's impressive considering it's your first Kickstarter.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it took me a while to get everything together, and because I'm not very tech savvy, so things like putting a video together and looking into Kickstarter and all that, I have to approach very slowly and start scratching my head. I'm like, and you do what? And you put where? And after, so what probably would have taken people a couple of days to do, I did slowly over like 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, you really must have been studying other campaigns just to see what that was like to put together.
Yeah, I did watch quite a few videos, and also I always keep an eye out to the indie scene and Kickstarters and things like that, and see what other people are doing, and think, okay, which ones do I remember, and which bits do I like. And so it's just a case of just seeing what came forward from my memory of what ones I had seen.
Mm-hmm.
And anything that stuck in my memory, I was like, okay, well then that obviously worked. I'll use a bit of that. I'll use a bit of that. Just put it together.
Well, I wanted to give a shout out to the people who are tuning in. We've got Doris Jones, Labors of Love. We've got Mary Machine Gun, Pops Van Zant, Michaela Jade. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button. Share this out with your friends. And if you are tuning in, wherever it is you're tuning in from, go into the show notes. We have the links to follow Beast Hunting Battle Badgers. We've got the Kickstarter link, and we've got links to Steve. So follow him on his social media as well. Let me see. Beast Hunting Battle Badgers. I wanted to ask you about the art. When it came time to putting together your comic books, whether it was this one, earlier projects and things like that, was going from like splash pages and pinups to sequential art very difficult for you?
Not so much. I mean, like I said with the Beast Quest books, the space that I have to work in, because it's quite a small book, most of the images only take up, say, 4 by 5 image little squares. So I would approach my work in Beast Quest as if they were each panels. So it was then just a case of taking that way of working and doing the panels one after another on a page rather than every few pages in a book. And also, being such a big comic fan when I was younger, I always drew things sequentially. The idea that, you know, this picture leads into the next picture, leads into the next one. So it wasn't too big a jump.
Okay.
It's always fun to be able to draw a big splash page, though. If someone gives you the scope or the space and says, okay, we now need a huge poster of it, or this will be a bigger book with a nice big cover on it, then yeah, go wild.
Well, because I was going to say, a lot of people, you know, with pinups especially, you know, you've got the beautiful lady oftentimes, and maybe not a lot of background, but I'm seeing you fill these pages, but it doesn't feel like it's overwhelming.
Oh, thank you.
Which is very nice.
That's a talent.
I've always been more interested in the creatures and the monsters than drawing the ladies, you know, with their butts out. I mean, there's some amazing artists out there like, you know, Frank Cho and J. Scott Campbell, who do draw incredible books, incredible women and things like that. But that just never interested me that much when drawing. Real life, it's cool, but you know, on the page, I was more inspired by old sort of Ray Harryhausen movies, Thundercats cartoons, all that kind of geeky stuff, and you know, that's what was coming out on paper, really.
One of the things that I had spoken to with Daphne Lage was finding your specific style.
Right.
When do you feel like you kind of came into your own, going, "Yeah, this is me. This is Steve Sims."
I think it was when it probably came out through doing Beast Quest for over a decade. I mean, I really loved, like I mentioned to you before, being a huge fan of Mike Mignola. A really big fan of Eastman and Laird. Obviously, lots of different artists, and I would try and do a little bit of each of them. And with the illustration course I did, they taught us very much about working in different styles. So rather than worrying too much about what my style was, I was more concerned with looking at a style that's supplied and being able to copy it. So which helped when working on things like Barney or Noddy, or Action Man books, things like that. You get a style guide of how they drew it, and you would then have to try and copy it. But then after working on Beast Quest for say 10 years or so, working on one thing, you can't help but for your own style to start coming out, because you're constantly having to solve problems. Each brief describes what they want, and then the problem is you then have to draw it. So it comes out naturally that way anyway. And when I started to see a style coming through in that, I thought, okay, this is when I need to start doing my own stuff, because I could apply this to my own thing and also be a bit more flexible with it as well. Move towards starting to inject more of that cartoony Asterix love into it as well. So yeah, it was pretty much that, I think.
What is your process as far as editing your own artwork? Because I'm seeing pages here. All right, we're scrolling through the pages where it's very, okay, you've got your sign, you've got your character, and of course you have your space for the word bubbles. But then you have, the library, the bookshop, and everything. I'm certain that when you were kind of putting this page together here, and he looks like a wizard, and you're like, oh, all of these things can go in. Like, what can we go into? And then you're like, no, stop. It's taking away. What is your process as far as self-editing, since you're doing the art and this is like distinctly your project?
Well, with regards to the way that the pages are laid out and to make sure that the story makes sense, a good friend of mine, George Flint, is an amazing artist. He's who Flint is named after. We at lunchtime, I try and do it once every couple of weeks. We would go down to the local pub, have a drink, and look at each other's work we've been doing at home. So I would bring my little folder along with the Battle Badgers pages, and I'd show him what I was drawing without any text bubbles or anything. And he would look over them, and I would just get an idea from him if he could work out what was going on without any words, which goes back to that kaiju self-published thing I did originally, sort of getting the story across without any words first to make sure that everything flows and makes sense. And then when you put those words in, it just elevates everything up and it all, gels together. So with regards to editing and making sure that things make sense and are legible and readable, he's kind of my sounding board, really. I tend to put a page in front of him, give him a certain amount of time to look at it, and then whip it away. And he's like, oh, but I'm not totally finished. And it's like, yeah, but you know what's going on from quickly looking at it. And that's how we read comics. You quickly scan across, you need to get the information across quite quickly in your compositions. If you over-labor panels, it can just tighten things up too much and there can be too much going on.
One of the biggest challenges that I've heard people say is finding the simple lines and allowing that to tell the biggest story.
Right.
Because I think a lot of people, they cram so much in, to what you were saying, is like putting it into the panel, that it kind of takes away that that takes a critical eye, that takes discipline, I think, finding those lines in order to, again, taking a more simple line and making the biggest impact.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of it as well comes from what artwork you like or are inspired by with regards to storytelling. So for me, big influences for me are things like Dragon Ball, the manga. I love Akira Toriyama's line and the simplicity of what he does. His fight scenes can get really crazy, lines everywhere, but it's still really neat, so you can read it really simply. And of course, again, Usagi Yojimbo, Stan Sakai's way of telling a story is so clean and simple. The way he uses a line, his character is almost like he's writing them rather than drawing them, because it all seems to come so naturally and flows so nicely with his line work, but never gets overcomplicated. So, like the simplicity of the way they draw, yet the story is so strong. It was a huge inspiration for me not to over labor panels. There are artists that I really like that do incredibly detailed work, but the stories don't stick in my head as much as the simpler ones. So I always tend to kind of lean towards what the more simpler cartoonists are doing, rather than the really, really detailed, incredible draftsmen and artists that are out there. They're amazing. I'd love to be able to draw like them, but when it comes to storytelling, I'm more drawn to the simplicity of artists like Stan Sakai, really.
Now I'm looking at your campaign here. You've got opportunities for people to get your sketches.
Yeah, I've got the A4 sketches. I've got all those compiled in a folder here. So I've done a certain amount and got them up for people to nab if they're interested. So the things, as you can see there.
I have to ask, have you ever done one of those where you're like, I don't want to part with it?
Yeah, there are some that I really like that I think, oh, maybe I'll keep that one. But then a lot of them are in the sketchbook section of the hardback book. So I can keep that as a keepsake and, remember them. And a lot of the time, this sort of artwork just gets put in a folder and in a drawer. So it's nice for if people want it to
find a home for with people who will appreciate the art.
Yeah. A lot of people at cons have said, "Oh, I picked up that picture from you, and it's on the wall." And I think, "Oh, well, that's awesome. It's on someone's wall rather than just stuck in one of my folders." So yeah, there's plenty of these up for grabs if anybody's interested. Yeah, I got loads of them. I won't bore you with all of them, but
that's amazing. And we are almost at our hour, Steve. It has been such a pleasure speaking with you and sharing your Genesis story, and of course, beast hunting battle badgers.
Hey, it's flown by, but I hope it's been interesting for people.
Well, you've got absolutely. I mean, I love the creator's journey. I love speaking to different creators, finding out their path, and we try to learn from everybody who sits in the chair, because there's some people who are on this path, but they're at different levels, or they are kind of going through different things. Whether it's struggling to find an artist, if you're a writer, or what it's like for you, because you do it all, it must feel quite lonely sometimes, because you don't have that collaborative team, but at least you have a friend that you can take a look at each other's artwork and have that critique.
Yeah, that's one side of creating your own project like that, and being so focused and creating it. It is quite an isolating thing. It's a one-man job, so it is quite important to make sure you have somebody to bounce the artwork off of, to say, what about this? What do you think about that? Which is why sort of forums and Facebook groups and little indie creator groups are really good, just because you can just hit somebody up and say, hey, I'm doing this, what do you think, or what are you working on? Just reaching out and getting a bit of communication going.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, go ahead.
Conventions as well, like I said before, they're really good for that, because everybody packs up their folder and comes out into the sunlight and dusts everything off, and suddenly realizes everybody else has been creating really cool stuff. You just show it to each other and then give each other a high five, and then go back to your little cave to draw the next thing.
It's so funny. The artists kind of consider themselves trolls, hunched over, pale.
Yeah, yeah. But the thing is, I think lots of people in lots of avenues of work are very much the same. We tend to think it's just artists, but there are so many other people in other jobs that are living just the same sort of lifestyles, just head down trying to get the job done, and every now and then coming up to the surface, take a breath of fresh air and check in with everybody else, see if they're all right, still ticking.
And for anybody who is thinking about breaking into the industry, or anyone young or old who say, yeah, this is the thing that I want to do, what would be your first piece of advice for them?
My first piece of advice will be, keep it simple, keep it something you're really interested in, and keep it something that you can produce in a decent amount of time. So say some of the set yourself, say, a 6 month goal. Like, okay, I'll get this done in 6 months, and at the end of that time, if you've got something that you look at and think, okay, it's half decent and I finished it, if you've got enough energy at the end of that to still want to do more, then go for it. That's the main thing. Is it's not easy, but it is quite fulfilling to actually produce stuff, and you're not necessarily going to make a lot of cash out of it, but if you make a little bit and it's enough to give you the sort of stoke the fire to produce something else, then you're rolling, really.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that it's when you make that decision, it's an investment. It's an investment of time, energy, funds. A lot of times with these crowdfunding attempts, and you're killing it, by the way, but a lot of people, they come out of the gate and they think, oh, I'm going to make all this money, because they see things like Berserker making, like gobs of money, and they're like, oh yeah, I can do that, and they realize, oh, at the end of the day, it's hard. Putting together a campaign is hard. Putting the book together is hard. The campaign, trying to market it, getting it out on podcasts and shows like ours.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not easy, and at the end of the day, most people don't make their money back.
Yeah, I think the thing with the internet that we kind of forget more and more is that most of it, 90% of what you see at the internet, is not real. It's a projection. It's a glamour. So something that looks like somebody's just, I did this really quickly, knocked it out, and oh look, I got loads of money for it. That's not how it works. Anything that pops up that looks interesting or looks cool or like creative, someone's put a lot of time and a lot of effort into that, and they've had to push it an awful lot to get it in front of you, and they will probably get something for it, but it's never what you think. Like 1 in a million or 1 in 3 million or whatever will be lucky enough to suddenly get a huge amount of cash in. But even then, if they have, you don't know, they could have put 20 years into getting to that point, and that was just the one of the past 300 failures that managed to hit it big. So
yeah, there are no overnight successes. There's usually years and years of blood, sweat, and tears behind it.
Which is why it's so important for it to be something you're interested in.
And the consistency. If you find that you're going to be on this path, keep going, keep pursuing it, because you never know. You never know, that one book may launch you and you become that overnight success, right? Quote unquote.
Yeah. And even then, like the success that you have, people might say, "Oh, well, you should be selling this to DreamWorks," or "I'm sure Disney are knocking on your door." It's like, well, no, that's not really the reality. The success, what you get, a little bit of success, you just have to take and think, okay, that's cool. I made that little bit, and I use that to fuel the fire for the next little bit. The baby steps, just keep on going, and as long as you enjoy it.
Is that how you would define success then? And if not, how would you?
I think, I don't know. Success, I think, is when you get up, the thing you have to do. If you don't hate having to do it, then you're all right. You're successful. If when you get up, you think, "Oh God, I've got to drag myself through another day," then yeah, maybe try something else.
Yeah, I think we've all been there. Steve Sims, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I'm going to put the card up. Don't go anywhere. We've got an outro, but we can talk to you after the show. Here we go. Again, everybody, thank you for tuning in. This is Ragin' with Steve Sims, episode 30. Wherever it is you are listening from, make sure that you hit the subscribe button. We are simulcasting to Indie Volt, Comics and More New Jersey, Geek Insider, as well as Ragin' AVC. Check out the show notes. We've got the link to Beast Hunting Battle Badgers 1 through 6, the hardcover edition on Kickstarter. Give it some love. If you've already supported it, that's great. Hit the share button too. Tell your friends all about it. Hey, Nita.
Yo,
Final words.
throw my dudes.
We're out of here, you guys. Thank you.